Hey everyone, welcome to a special Sunday late night edition of the Smash Pod. We just wrapped up weekend 2, had a lot of big games, had a lot of exciting ones, some upsets, actually a few upsets. But I'm here with the Hawk. We wanted to talk a little bit about some of the biggest reactions we have to some of the rising stock of players and teams, and maybe some teams and players that we're just absolutely down on. We think after 2 weeks, we've seen enough of them. We just want to get rid of them. But I'm here with Hawk. What's up, man? How's it going?
Good. I have barely left the couch today, just watching football all day, which is glorious.
Yeah, nothing like a Sunday full of football and just being a potato rotting on the couch.
Except my boys.
Yeah, they can't win in Minnesota, man. I don't know what's up with the Niners. Like I think they haven't won in like, is it 6 or 7 games or years or
Just
something like that?
have seven losses in a row before today, so it's eight now.
Well, they played against Sam, Joe Montana, Darnold today, so maybe that's why it was so difficult to win.
I agree. I think he channeled the spirit of Randall Cunningham and Fran Tarkenton.
He looks pretty good so far. Well, maybe we'll talk about him today a little bit. Maybe his name will come up maybe in a future pod, but he actually looks pretty good, and he was on the Niners last year, so maybe the Shanahan magic helped create a little bit of a quarterback beast that's brewing in Minnesota. But speaking of beasts, let's jump right into whose stock is soaring. I know we got a few that we want to talk about today, and their performances were just off the chains today. We were a little nervous about them, but of course, we're talking about these two big-time rookie receivers, Marvin Harrison and Malik Neighbors. They absolutely just crushed today. Amazing performances. Hawk, let's dive right into it. They're two guys whose stock is soaring for us. What were your initial impressions and reactions to their performances today?
Just phenomenal. I mean, the numbers are there, right? Harrison had 130 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Neighbors had, I think, about 128 yards and a touchdown. Harrison, I mean, wasn't getting separation the week before. He was all over the field, impressive catches. Neighbors, I mean, making his normal acrobatic catches. I mean, most impressively, he almost made Daniel Jones look like a not terrible quarterback.
That's really, really hard to do. So Neighbors must be really good in order to do that, right?
And that is magic. Talk about the Darnold, the Shanahan magic. That is true magic right there.
That's the Neighbors magic. I mean, yeah, Neighbors had a 64% target share. And if you're Daniel Jones, I mean, that's what you're supposed to do, right? Like, you have no talent around you other than Neighbors. You got to just pepper him with targets. I think he had 18 targets today. They looked really, really amazing. And Harrison looked like a different person to me. I was watching that game and he had those 2 long touchdowns. Like, that's the type of talent that people were expecting coming out of the gates. He just didn't look right week 1, right? But like this week, he looked amazing.
And, both Murray and Daniel Jones, shockingly, we debate if they're good quarterbacks or not, but they're not stupid people. They looked around and said, hey, maybe I should throw the ball to the really big, fast, tall, open guy that makes catches.
Yeah, these guys score. Let's get the ball to them. Yeah, for
Hey, look
sure.
at that open guy 20 yards down the field. I'm gonna throw him the ball instead of the covered slow guy over here.
Yeah. No, they looked amazing, and I think we're both excited about them. So no need to freak out anymore. I know people were nervous, but they're locked and loaded in lineups going forward. Next up on our stock that is soaring is J.K. Dobbins. I mean, it looks like the Chargers got a new main man at running back. I know they had a little bit of a split backfield coming to the season, but it looks like J.K. is taking over. What were your thoughts on J.K.?
Well, the funny thing is, if you looked at it, like I just remember from the game watching J.K. dominate. Like I couldn't really remember Gus Edwards carrying the ball, but they still actually did have like an even split of carries, but it wasn't close. I think Edwards had 18 carries for like 58 yards, and Dobbins had 17 carries for 140 something. I mean, he now is averaging 9 yards a carry and 130 plus yards in both games this season. It's just there's clearly like the Harbaugh running game is working.
Yeah, I mean, they've went into the season being really intentional about implementing that, and it's already happening. J.K. Dobbins, I think he's the RB3 through 2 games, super small sample size,
Yeah.
but looked really impressive throughout. And I mean, you knew that there's going to be a running team. The Chargers were going to be trying to run the ball and trying to implement that smash mouth brand of football right away. But it's kind of cool to see it's happening right off the bat. And looks like that Harbaugh Roman formula is having some success in La La Land.
Well, and here's the thing with Dobbins, right? And we saw this in Baltimore. Always a very talented runner. Has gotten hurt every single year. So look, if you're playing traditional fantasy, maybe you should still be nervous. But if you're playing on something like Smash Up Sports, you can just keep riding Dobbins while he's hot. When he gets hurt, you set a new lineup every week, so it won't
Right.
matter. We don't want to see Dobbins get hurt, but you at least it's not going to sink your team.
Nah, we don't want to see him get hurt. But you just ride J.K. Dobbins to those little legs fall off, I guess. But yeah, I mean, J.K. is someone that I had in some smash up lineups this week, and I mean, you'll probably see him in some future smash up lineups. He'll probably be a popular ad. All right, last on our soaring stock report, the New Orleans Saints, man. I mean, they look like the greatest show on turf from the Rams days when they were rocking with Warner and all of those speedy, fast receivers and running backs out there. I mean, Kamara had a day to day. What did he have? 4 touchdowns?
I think it was 3, but yeah, it was very, very impressive.
No, he had 4. I think he had 4. Yeah,
Rushing and
yeah, he had 4 touchdowns. I think he had 115 rushing, 65. I mean, he was all over the place.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of parallels too with the greatest show on turf, right? Because Kurt Warner was like working in a grocery store before he got his break with the Rams, and David Carr was playing for the Raiders before he got his break with the Saints. So, Warner's job was a little bit more prestigious than Carr's, but pretty similar.
Yeah, speaking of Carr, though, I mean, he's now QB2. Again, small sample size. We're only 2 weeks in the season, but he's QB2 on the year, right? And he's sitting in a lot of my leagues on the waiver wire. So he'll be a popular ad for sure. Rashid Shaheed, a popular late round guy. A lot of people were taking him like 9th, 10th round and after. He's a wide receiver too through 2 weeks of the year. So he's another guy that's probably on more rosters than Carr was, just like because there's mostly single quarterback leagues. But man, Shaheed's going to be a threat for Speed Demon every week. A smash card that gets you points if you have a 50-yard reception or more. He had another 70-yard touchdown today, another deep shot from Carr. And I think what people, slept on is the impact that Clint Kubiak was going to have on the Saints as their new OC. He's really put his prints on that offense. They run the most pre-snap motion in the league so far, and it's really paying off.
Absolutely. I mean, he's the player that people wanted Worthy to be last week.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people probably putting Speed Demon on Worthy, and he didn't do too much this week.
He would let them down, right?
Yeah. All right, so those are our top highlights regarding the stock that is soaring for us right now. But on the flip side of things, there's a few shares that we want to dump. So there's a couple of players and teams where we're seeing some things starting to tank. We're a little bit worried. We're actually freaking out about them because after 2 weeks, again, not a huge sample size, but it's a sample size that we have and things don't look good so far. So let's start off with one that is really troubling us. Mr. Taylor Swift, Mr. Travis Kelce himself. What are your thoughts on Kelce so far?
More than anything, I feel misled because if I saw his haircut prior to that first game, I probably would have sold like earlier. I would not have bought in the first place.
You're like, hell no. I don't want that.
No NFL player with that haircut has ever been a tight end one. That is a fact. You can go fact check that. But yeah, Kelce now has 39 yards in 2 weeks. Rashee Rice is running a lot of those underneath routes, and it's kind of the safety valve. I mean, both a deep threat, but also a safety valve for Pat Mahomes now. And, Kelce's a little bit cold last season. We made some excuses. We thought, well, there's not a lot of talent. Teams can double, maybe even triple him. But with the talent around him now, it's going to open up space. Doesn't look like it's happening. And look, he still might be a useful tight end. I'm not saying to cut him, but if there's another player in your league who still sees him a little bit as the Kelce of the last few years, now might be a time to see if you can trade him for good value.
Yeah, this seems to be like that inflection point for Kelce where his price tag was still pretty high in drafts this year and his production is like just really falling off. I mean, I still think they're going to like really, really ease off of him because they want to have him healthy and available for the stretch run. I mean, this team is poised to make a deep run in the playoffs, but I think you mentioned it. Rashee Rice, he's definitely emerging as that like underneath threat. He's basically, I think someone, I don't want to take credit for it, but someone is like, he's like KC's Amon-Ra now, right? He's like the underneath guy, slants, some short routes, and he's catching everything. He's got great hands, got some nice yards after the catch abilities. And so he's becoming the focal point of that passing offense, especially with Hollywood Brown now being out for the year. I mean, I think Rashee Rice's stock, he's someone we could have talked about in the last segment of stock soaring, but he's looking real good, and it's making Travis Kelce look really bad.
But look, so I guess then the question is, as a fantasy owner, are you saying to Travis Kelce, we are never getting back together?
Moving on to our next person.
Fair point.
Our next stock that we're trying to dump shares of is Mr. George Pickens. And, Chris, you and I were kind of going back and forth on this a little bit earlier, but I think no matter how you dice it up, George Pickens is not having the season yet that people were quite expecting. Even though he's going in the middle rounds, I think there was some risk there, right? But things not looking great so far. What are your thoughts on Pickens to this point that's making us kind of freak out about him?
Yeah, so and here's the thing, right? There's a lot of guys we could have talked about here, but it's early. Like some of these teams will figure it out. And what you can look at is say, look, they're getting targets, they're getting volume, their team's throwing the ball. It just hasn't clicked. Maybe it won't, but there's still time. The thing that scares me about Pickens is we saw what Arthur Smith did to the Falcons offense last year. We made a lot of jokes about it. Now in 2 games, it's happening again in Pittsburgh. Fields has thrown the ball 23 and 20 times in the 2 games so far. Uh, Pickens today, only 4 targets. What scares me is that lack of volume passing, all of the runs with Harris and Warren. Again, this echoes what Arthur Smith did the last couple years in Atlanta. And so right now, if I'm George Pickens, I am drunk dialing Drake London and Kyle Pitts and saying, it's not your fault. Like, I get it, guys. I was trash talking you last year, but now I understand the pain you were going through. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously not great, right? Like everyone's concerned about Arthur Smith. I have some Pickens. I actually have Amari Cooper too. You mentioned. I'm actually a little bit down more on Cooper because he has 27 yards through 2 games, and Pickens at least had an 85-yard game in game one. But the Arthur Smith effect is obviously there, and it's alive and well, and always potentially going to cut the legs off of anyone in that passing game or offense. My problem with Cooper is he's tied to Deshaun Watson. Regardless of what happened last year, Watson looks absolutely garbage this year. Not that he looked good last year, but he looks trash this year. And there's like no reason why anyone wants to play him. I think a lot of people are calling for him to no longer be on that squad, but he'll derail Cleveland for a while because they owe him millions and millions of dollars. But yeah, Pickens does not look great either. There's a whole heap of guys that I think go into that bucket of people we're scared of right now.
Look, I'm definitely selling a bit of the Amari share, but at least he has the volume. Pickens, if he's sitting that 4 to 6 target range, he might have some spike weeks when he catches some deep balls, but it's going to be hard for him to get anything going consistently.
I think we should see at the end of the season. I think we have a little split here on like who we like less, which is not a good thing either way. But you like Pickens less, I like Cooper less. Cooper's ADP was actually higher, so that's part of why I like him less. But maybe we should see who finishes higher at the end of the year from a perspective.
Yeah, we can see. I mean, both very close in ADP. They're both going pretty close together. I saw Pickens going higher in some of my drafts, but yeah,
Yeah,
we can revisit. But definitely, without the volume, it's going to be hard. And Arthur Smith kills another offense.
yeah. Let's see what happens. All right, and then lastly, one of the units that people were excited about coming to the year we're just not so high on anymore, and part of it's injuries, part of it's just like not seeing what the expectations that we were hoping for being lived up to. That's the Rams offense. I mean, through 2 games, I mean, they looked like trash today. They only had 10 points versus the Cardinals. We know Puka was lost early in the year already, which is disappointing. He's not out for the season, but it seems like they need him back ASAP because Cooper Kupp got hurt today. He messed up his ankle. He was ruled out by halftime. We'll see if he's going to be available for this coming week against the Niners, which is a big game already early in the season. Stafford doesn't look good. I mean, if he doesn't have Kupp there, which is his safety net, he only had 216 yards passing, 0 touchdowns. Stafford is healthy coming into the year. They thought they were going to have Puka, Kupp, and Kyron. I mean, Kyron's barely hanging on to fantasy relevancy as a
He's
second
averaging
round pick.
2.5 yards per carry. 2.5 yards per carry. That is, we talked in the preseason about how his advanced stats have been middling, but the opportunity in the offense was good last year. Without this year, I mean, look, he'll probably still be better over the season. And actually, with them gone, maybe get some more targets. But if I'm someone that took Kyron in the early to mid second round, I'm pretty nervous I'm not getting the value I expected.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Kyron was someone that we were scared of because of those reasons, and now it's kind of bearing fruit. And it's just disappointing that injury is taking out these guys. But we always knew with these guys, injuries were going to be a problem and a concern, and they're just rearing their heads like
And
immediately.
interesting too, because this is the opposite. So we talked on our podcast the other day about Green Bay and how the loss of Love and having Willis would take down all the receivers. I feel like Stafford was one of those guys that a lot of people drafted late as a backup quarterback, or if they really waited on quarterback, maybe felt, hey, with Kyron and Puka and Kupp, Higby coming back at some point in the season, here's a guy with so many weapons. He should be a good quarterback. And now it's the opposite. He's lost everything around him. It's hard to see Stafford having value really any time, at least until he gets those weapons back.
Go pick up Tyler Johnson and Jordan Whittington and
Tutu Atwell.
DeMarcus Robinson. Get your 3 catches for 36 yards while you can. Actually, no, I think people will probably be picking them up. That's the sad part. Maybe Stafford will find some value. Maybe he'll find another gem out of those. But like it'll be tough to call who that might be. We'll have to see how things shake out.
But what you're saying is watching the Rams might make you puka for the next few weeks.
That joke made me puka in my mouth. On that note, that's going to wrap up our quick reaction pod on this Sunday night. We hope you enjoyed it. We're going to try to do this a little bit more going forward, just to give you our quick reactions on the best and worst of each weekend. Obviously, we're going to overreact to some things and maybe underreact, but that's the fun of it, right? So we'll be here for it. Hawk, why don't you let people know how they can continue to follow us along on Smash It?
Yep. Subscribe on YouTube, Apple Pod, Spotify, wherever you're listening to us. Go to smashupsports.com. Register today. No entry fee, no pay to win. Free weekly tournaments, over $1,500 in prizes. League play and single player coming. And then follow us on social media. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, or any other social media just about at SmashUpSports. Names are in the descriptions. And we will see you next time.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you later.
Making me puka.
You Pickens the wrong person.
We are never, ever, ever.